You're watching Experience Comic Culture and Sales, streaming live daily to Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter.
That was interesting.
I've done that opening before, by the way. Hello, what's up, the internet?
Spot on. Wow.
Oh my gosh.
It's uncanny. Oh, we missed you too there, John. Wow. That's amazing.
So we got lots of books in the store this week. I can talk while drinking water.
If you were a Jeff Dunham fan, you know that's an actual thing.
Shut up, Pat. Yeah. What's up, the internet? Welcome to In Stores This Week, where we talk about comic books that are in stores this week. I am producer Kyle, who didn't realize the timing of the opening and had to do the cold open with a Zofran in his mouth because he felt like he was going to throw up. So rather than look like I had some sort of rabies, I just decided to be quiet. Don't get old. There aren't a lot of books this week.
No, there's not.
It's because, for the last 2 weeks, no one has done any work.
Including us.
Well, no, we've done work. We've just had to figure out how to do our jobs without anybody else doing theirs. It's like 2 weeks of no news. Like, Dan and I are so out of topics and stuff to talk about that we're just making stuff up at this point, talking at, like last night we talked for an hour, like a little while about the difference between something being canceled and then something not having a second season made and the difference.
I'm just trying to avoid getting to the topic where I think Mantis is going to have sex with Groot. So
I think the answer is Drax. Or
I want to make the joke so bad.
the weird funny guy from Kevin Bacon's Yard.
just Celestial Madonna, that's all I'm saying. Old school comics.
When she sings Don't Cry For Me, Argentina. Or Don't Cry For Me, Nowhere. Then I will, if she becomes Space Evita, I quit.
How long do we have to wait before we can make crass jokes?
About what?
Well, because if you got Drax and you got Groot, would that make it a threesome? But I'm ready to go.
I think Jay may have been hanging out with us too long.
Loser.
Okay. It's all those dad jokes I got to give people to remind them about commercial breaks.
That's fair. So no, there's not a whole lot of books this week, but on the upside, I think almost every book we read was decent.
Mm-hmm.
Mostly.
which is something Jay is going to get tattooed across his forehead.
Yeah.
I didn't mute you yet, Pat. I'm just gonna put hashtag Shut Up Pat merch on the XP merch store. All right, let's get started with the books. Shall we? We've got Pat in the comments. Kenneth Bird,
I promised something to Ed. I don't know if Ed's here yet.
John Spilios, Jeff Wedding.
I sent you a picture in Facebook.
Yeah, I wondered what you were doing instead of doing your show.
Ed asked about the hat I was making with the orange and the green. And it was on my phone. The only person I have on my phone that I could send it to was you. And I thought he could put it up, but you weren't paying attention.
I was not.
I figured that out.
So for today's show, you're interrupting a trashy TV marathon that am enjoying. That once a year, the E! Network airs every episode of a show that I quite love over New Year's, a show called Las Vegas, where the premise is, let's get an older actor to play a mysterious guy who kills people, and then a bunch of hot actors to play people who work at a Vegas casino. That was the pitch. And somehow they got both James Caan and I'm going to blank on his name. He played Magnum P.I. Tom Selleck.
Yep. I remember that show.
The show is awful, but I love it.
But it's not as bad as that. What was it, Viva Laughlin or whatever it was with Hugh Jackman?
Oh, God, yes. Viva Laughlin.
Okay, Ed's here. Can you show the picture?
Ed, here's the picture of your hat and scarf that you wanted to see.
Stop.
See, I flipped it so it wouldn't look like a jack-o'-lantern.
I think you should have gone jack-o'-lantern.
No,
It would have been a dolphin's o'-lantern, but still.
I can still make that happen.
Jeff, I disagree in that I'm relatively sure in actual Las Vegas, no one has ever flown through the air off the top of a building because of a slight breeze where the special effects are so bad, it makes Batman climbing up the side of the wall in the 60s TV series look like Avatar.
I remember the show now.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
But any excuse to look at Molly Sims, I'll take. All right. Let's start with some books. Apparently Purgatory Must Die. I wasn't aware that was a thing that could happen.
Why did your voice break at the end of that? Must die? Like you're
every time I think of it, every time I see this title, I think of what is it? John Carter or not John Carter?
John Tucker?
Yeah, John Tucker Must Die.
Yeah.
Oh. I was thinking John dies at the end.
No.
Good movie.
Jeff Wedding, the special effects in real life would be more believable.
And stop.
But anyway.
Yeah.
On to the book.
Oh yeah, we're here to do comics.
Yeah.
Sean, is Han becoming problematic for you? You should just put him in a chair and make him sit next to you.
I should. Oh, here, talking about him.
Jeez. So this one had really interesting art. And I'm going to be super honest. This felt like reading the setup to a Marvel movie with all the cameos that are in this. I think this actually has the potential to be like a huge Dynamite story if they do it, if they handle it correctly. Because I mean, there's some heavy hitters in this one, and maybe spoilers unless I'm wrong. I'm pretty sure I saw a character named Badass in one of the panels. So I mean, they're pulling a lot of people into this book, and usually I'm not real big into crossovers, but This, the story's good, the art's good, and this just looks. This was really good. I'm on board with this one.
I'm with you on the art and the story and the setup, but the fact that there are 4 people playing pool together that I would never think would sit together in a room, let alone play pool together, seemed kind of strange to me. But they are bringing together all the different Chaos comic characters. So, though I don't know if I saw Bad Kitty.
Mm-hmm.
They haven't introduced Bad Kitty yet in the Dynamite universe, though.
Yes, they have.
Is that officially out?
There was a Bad Kitty comic about 6 months ago.
Right, but that's not been released yet.
Yeah.
They just crowdfunded it.
No, we reviewed it.
I don't think we did.
Yep. It's out.
Maybe I'm conflating that with the one that Tom Hutchison's doing. I don't know.
I think that's a different one.
Hmm.
They did a Bad Kitty one shot about 6 months ago.
Anyway, look, more Evil Ernie, less everybody else. That's my review of this book.
Yeah, I'm with Jay. This was a pretty good read. Introduced me to a lot more characters that, again, I've really not seen that much of. I've read one Purgatory book before and really liked the characters, so I think this would be really good if they do it right. I feel like this could be a little bit fragile in that if they just take a wrong step here and there, that it could ruin the series for everybody, or I could be dead wrong, and it may just be good no matter what. But this has the makings to be something really fun and enjoyable, and everything in between, in my opinion.
All right. Speaking of more,
It's a great cover.
we need more people in this book, I think. Because there aren't enough. There's like 37 people in the cast of this book at this point. And I don't understand.
And how they haven't broken into a musical number yet.
Right?
Yeah.
Before we get into this book, I need to address something in the comments. Nikki Cox and Molly Sims both fall behind Tom Selleck's mustache. So if we could put that debate to rest, the casting goes Tom Selleck's mustache, Vanessa Marcil, Molly Sims, Nikki Cox, in that order.
I don't know. I agree with Pat and John.
All I know is at some point, I want to know what was Tom Selleck's first rodeo.
That's cool. All right. So Vampirella versus Red Sonja, number 3. I will say again, I don't remember number 2. Don't care that I don't remember number 2. But there are so many people in this book.
Yeah. This one reads kind of like a standard DC Marvel multiverse book. Not bad, but it feels like it's a little too late. And I'm not sure why what Purgatory is doing works for me. But this one is, I don't know, maybe because that one's an in-universe crossover, and this is like some kind of multiverse that are filled with characters. Like, I have a hard enough time remembering all the regular Dynamite characters, but now you throw me in a multiverse thing with even more characters. I have no idea who they are, or if they've ever been in books before, or if they were just specifically created for this one. I don't know. Maybe the next few issues will have something that just like pulls me in and be like, yeah, I'm on board with this like I am with Purgatory one. But it's hashtag not that bad. That is a great cover, John. That is a great cover.
Okay, just to explain the last 2 books. The Red Sonja is part, or the Purgatory is part of the 3 miniseries that Ray Fox is doing. This being the 3rd miniseries about Purgatory. This is the conclusion of his 3 miniseries run, and it's kind of blending in with Christopher Priest's run on Vampirella. He's borrowing the characters Priest has been playing with and bringing them together. That's over here. What's going on over here is this is from the Dan Abnett's Sonya Versal and Vampyverse, where they were introduced to the multiverse of characters and these different versions of Red Sonja and Vampirella, and now they're bringing those all together with the Project Superpower characters, which are all the public domain characters, like Green Llama, Black Terror. These are all characters who have been around a very long time, so much so that they are now in the public domain. So most of the characters we see there are tied to or are existing characters that have been around a long time.
Okay. So with that said, this for me was actually the best issue so far of the entire series.
Okay.
Yeah, no collars.
But yeah, no, I've been enjoying the series since issue 1, and for me, this has been the best one that they've done so far. Regardless of whether I know who everybody is or not, I've just been enjoying it and trying to take it all in. It now finally seems that they're going somewhere with the story in terms of who the big bad is and whatnot. And then, of course, the half twist at the ending where now you've got this kind of divide in the team. For me, at least, has me very intrigued to see what they do with issue 4. But overall, I'm actually really liking this series.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I said, I keep making jokes about how many characters there are in this book, and it's because there's a ton.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a lot to draw together, and that's what they're trying to do here. Like, it's they're bringing a lot of work in, putting a lot of work into getting everybody in one universe. And what will be telling for me whether or not this series is good won't probably happen in this series. It'll happen in whatever the follow-up is, when they've got everybody where they want them and then do something to them. Right? This to me feels like Dynamite's way of setting up a Crisis on Infinite Earths kind of deal. Right? Like, what will tell me how good this series is will be what it leads to, not necessarily how this series go. Because when you're with what they're doing, this series is great. Right? And but it could be paid off very well or paid off very poorly. And we'll just have to wait and see what that is. So, to answer the earlier question, Tom Selleck's first rodeo was an episode of The Dating Game in 1965. Soon after, he appeared in commercials for products such as Pepsi Cola.
So he brought ropes on a first date?
No, but when they had him back again in 1967, he probably brought them. All right. Rob Guillory and Sam Lotfi, Mosley #1.
Yes, this one. After having Sam and Rob on Talking Shop yesterday with Miss Jen, where we also had Kurt Pyers. Is it Pyers or Piles?
Pyers?
Pyers, who did another book we have on this list we'll talk about later. Hearing them talk about this, I was excited when I saw it on the list. I was excited because it sounds so good. And this definitely did not disappoint me. I really like the main character. He's like a grumpy but loving grandpa. It's what he reminds me of. Like surly grandpas, but you still know deep down inside they're big softies. There were parts of this book that I chuckled at. There's a talk between him and his daughter where she goes, well, you don't want to talk about things. And he goes, hit me with whatever you got. And she starts talking about something. He's like, I don't want to talk about it. It was funny to me, at least. The ending of this issue, though, That's the part that's just like, you had me liking the book. Now you got my attention. What is this? I'm so down for this. This was a fantastic first issue.
Yeah, this really got my attention. I was impressed by the story, but also by the art. I mean, this is a really solid first issue. It's one of the better first issues I've read in a while. So I'm glad we picked this one up. I'm actually going to sit down and read it again, though. I want to, because I had to read everything fast today. But yeah, I want to sit down and read this one again because it was, as I'm reading it, I'm like, I'm running out of time, but I get it. So this one is sharp. This is definitely one to take a look for when you get in the comic shops this week.
Yes.
So something for me that really rang out in this book is Sam Lotfie's art. Right now that Dan kind of, flagged it there. Sam's not a guy who's done a lot in comics. He's been an animator and other things. He showed up in some like young talent specials that DC did. And the story that Rob and he told were that they'd been trying to work together for a number of years. And they finally came together, and it's like this thing has been marinating in both of them for a while. And it really came out well. And the color palette on it is super interesting, right? There's some really bright colors and some really dark scale colors. And it really does make like this kind of depth and pop thing happen that I think is really cool. The thing for me with this book wasn't necessarily the humor between the people, which Jay pointed out. The robots are very identifiable. They remind me of talking to people that I have in my own life who I'm not convinced are fully human. Who don't understand common phraseology and things, and who try to talk like, or that person who you're like, you're talking to me too informally. Please stop. Like, I don't know you. Don't act like you're my buddy.
Yeah.
Right. And he has to tell one robot, resume, or switch to formal mode. And
look, there are better ways to call me out on something than in the middle of a show like this, man.
No, like I once wrote a big long blog post about how I hate the people who come into the shop and just call me Bud, but they've never been in the shop before. I'm not your Bud. Don't call me Bud. It's not my name. Yeah. Like that's how I felt like he felt about the robots, right? It's like, oh, they're, this. And then at one point they mentioned, oh, I watched a mini biography of you. It's been seen by 12 people. You're famous.
Yeah, that was like 5 microseconds.
Uh-huh. kind of feels like this show sometimes. So, no, I really dug this book. I was in for everything. Here.
Yeah. Yep. I agree with Dan. This is definitely one of the better opening issues we've had in a little while. I feel like Lord of the Jungle was the last really solid opener that we had on the show when it came out. The art really, really was good, especially at the end when they add that nice little, here's why you want to be interested in this story. That drew me in, and I'm 100% hooked on this. I will say, I thought that they did decent with giving you a little bit of an origin story without hanging on to it too long. It's like they gave it to you up to a point, and then they bring you into modern day. So it seemed like he paced it well, and hopefully they can continue doing that in the next issue with everything.
All right.
Is Rob normally a writer? For some reason, I'm thinking of him as an
he's
artist.
Both.
Okay. Didn't he do the book with,
he was an artist on Chew.
That's it.
And then he was the writer-artist on Farmhand. It's he's kind of cut his teeth in both things now. So
Who was? I also want to know who the letterer was because I thought the use of the sound effects and everything was really good in this issue.
mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I really like the lettering. And, you know, that was something I was going to talk about in the Purgatory thing that I didn't bring up. I don't love when they change the lettering because Purgatory's talking.
They did it for a lot of people in that issue. Somebody else was blue, I think, when they did it.
Well, and it's like a different font, and it just
Mhm.
makes my brain itch. If you want to change the weighting or the color, that's fine, but don't change the font.
Do you think it's acceptable if they're doing it if it's like inner thoughts and exposition, or just change the bubble color?
I would change the bubble color and even change the line weight, but like they go into this almost blocky medieval Gothic font, and I don't like that. Use the same font all the way through. If you want to have Purgatory stuff being red and somebody else is being blue and somebody else being green, I don't care. But it just bugs me.
Yeah,
Okay.
a lot of letters do that nowadays, though, to differentiate.
Yeah, and it's wrong.
Yeah, I agree. You need to make your lettering as contrasting and clear as possible.
Mm-hmm. All right, so Spy Superb, which is Matt Kint. I gotta say, I was really excited for this book, and I don't know if that was misplaced or not. I don't feel like I have a good, strong handle on this book the way I did on, say, Mosley or some of the other books we read this week. Like, I feel like this is a book that for me is a multiple time reader to really figure out if I like it or not.
Oh, I get that. When I started reading this one, for some reason I got Dragnet vibes just from the way that it was bouncing back and forth. This book is kind of like it's a comedy of errors mixed with like an accidental spy story. I wasn't too wild about the art. I think the art is going to throw a lot of people off if art is one of the main things you look for in a book. I don't see too many people liking this art so much. But I dug the story. I think the concept of a spy program where participants aren't aware that they're spies, there's something about that. I just think that's neat. And what happens to the OG Spy Superb is hilarious to me. I laughed my head off when I first read that. This to me is a book that you have fun with it, but don't take it too seriously at all.
Yeah, totally agree. Because I tried to take it seriously and didn't enjoy it for that reason. But then kind of started thinking about Get Smart. I was a big fan of that show as a kid. And once I started going through it like that, it became a little more enjoyable, especially with all of the goofy stuff that was happening, like how the Spy Superb kills himself. Sorry to laugh.
Spoilers also.
Yeah.
And then, of course, what happens in the kind of, what is it, the middle end of the book in the guy's apartment. Again, just you could see that in your head being utterly hilarious. The art for me was definitely the turnoff of the book, but I think the story could be good enough that you can probably still get through it and at least enjoy it in some way, shape, or form.
Or not. It just didn't click for me. I couldn't. The art was a turnoff and just couldn't get into the story. And it was a lot of pages. Yeah, we like our books short to review them.
You hear that, Zenoscope?
Yeah.
The Get Smart vibes might have been what threw me, right? I might have been with Sean on that, is that I thought this was going to be a serious book and it wasn't. And that can definitely, if you go into a book thinking that it's a serious book and turns out it's a comedy, it could definitely affect your ability to read, right? The way you read it. Can anybody think of any other examples, like, or a book they thought was supposed to be a comedy and was actually super serious? The example I have is Scrapnik Island.
Yeah.
Right. That book is supposed to be a kid's book, and it's got like feelings and junk in it.
It's good.
But it's good.
I don't know
This
how
is kind
you
of the opposite way.
I don't know how you take a book called Spy Superb seriously, though.
Well,
It's kind of a silly name.
Well, it has nothing to do with that. It has everything to do with Matt Kint.
and I'm normally a big Matt Kent fan. The hardest part of this book to get through is when they introduce you to the guy who's basically the one on the cover. If you can kind of get through that really annoying part of the book, the stuff it's sandwiched in between could actually be good. I just feel like that's where the book really started hurting, is when they introduced the guy.
Yeah, no, my thing is that when I hear about a book from Matt Kint, to me, I'm thinking, the last the Black Badge, or his Exo Manowar stuff, or stuff that I can't think of the last thing I read from him that was light.
Now, Fear Case was very heavy. That was another one that
right. And so to have something be light from him, it was unexpected, and because it was unexpected, it took me a little bit aback. So, All right, I'm gonna try something real quick. Nope, didn't change. Okay.
I will say I just realized there is one book I missed on this list.
It's Only Teenage Wasteland #2.
We didn't really like this book that much the first time. I enjoyed the first issue until we got to the end, and it turned out it was an apocalyptic story, because you guys all know how I feel about apocalyptic stories right now. It didn't come back around for me. Kind of once the apocalypse happened, I left, and yeah. So.
See, I'm the opposite. Like, I don't mind a post-apocalyptic story. While I do think that trope is getting a little tired, right? I don't disagree on that. I don't feel like this was about the apocalypse so much. Like, this issue was not as much it didn't revolve around it's the end of the world, as like it's the I feel fine part of that REM lyric, right? It's okay, we're at the end of the world, but we're still teenage boys who are going to act the way teenage boys act, right? The end of the world has happened, and we're still busting chops about, like, dude, you got laid? Like, that must have caused it. Like, that's stuff that would actual teenage boys would actually do, right, in this situation. Like, to me, the book didn't focus as much on, okay, it's the end of the world, we have to battle these bad guys, or we have to battle this space alien, or we have to whatever. It's okay, we're camping out in a truck stop. Let's see how much of this beer we can drink. It became more normalized. And
So
I think that's the problem.
This is Kyle in the apocalypse?
No, Kyle in the apocalypse would be like, okay, where's a bank I can rob? I know money doesn't mean anything, but I've always wanted to, so I'm going to do it. Like Kyle in an apocalypse would just be living out his fantasies. This was it's like, okay, we have a new normal, and kind of return to normal. And it was refreshing to me to not have this become here's this thing we have to fight, or here's this, catalyst of the end of the world, like happens in so many of these other books. Like the prime example of that is that Once Upon a Time at the End of the World, in the place with the thing and the guy.
Yeah.
That we didn't keep reading. That book just turned into here's Beast of the Week thing. I like that this went a little bit different.
I definitely thought that this was better than issue 1. But I'm still not there yet. And it might be me, but these kids are annoying. But I was an annoying kid. Yeah, I know. I was an annoying kid. I'm still an annoying adult. I know that. But if I'm being completely honest about this book, though, I thought the last couple of pages were the best out of the whole thing. Um, until, and I won't spoil it, but the person we see at the end, we've already met this person.
Right. There's like this big reveal.
Yeah. So for the dialogue they use, it should have been something like, so, I think, what would you do without me? And just stopped right there. The last two words weren't needed to me. It's like watching a movie, and before you meet another character, you have to know that they're talking to their parent or they're talking to their sister. Like, you have to know, even though sometimes we've met the character, sometimes we haven't met it. But the movie has to let us know who this person is. It feels like they didn't need to do that in this. We've met this person, we know who this person is. There wasn't any cause for that. Overall, I would say this is okay. I could definitely give it another issue.
I would not have recognized the person in the big reveal if they hadn't told me who it was. But of course, I couldn't. Until Kurt was on yesterday, I couldn't have told you what the names of the characters in this book were.
I still don't know what the names of the characters in this book are.
Javi.
Right.
Yeah. But yeah, I agree with Jay. This was definitely better than the first, but it's still not that good. It's just hashtag not that bad, basically. But I agree that this not being the typical post-apocalyptic thing, and they're giving you something a little bit different is a good thing for it. I think that's probably why it's kept me interested so far, because I want to see how they continue to do teenagers being themselves, but still in this weird kind of post-apocalyptic event type deal, and see what happens. I am curious to see if there is a pattern like they are thinking with some of the things they're encountering. So if they do it again in issue 3, maybe there's a way to figure it out from there, but I'm still not seeing how they tie together just yet. But that's probably one of the more underlining things that does keep me interested, is where some of these things that they're experiencing tie into one another.
Can we stop with the super long titles, by the way? I realize it's a quote from a Who song, or it's the actual Who song, but can we get past that now? We've had too many of them.
They're only going to get longer, Dan. They're only going to get longer. It's going to be like anime titles.
When a minute ago, when Kyle talked about the apocalyptic thing with the Who, whatever it was he said, for a minute there, I thought that was a real title.
It could be.
Exactly. At least they didn't do the James Tinian thing of making a really long title and then doing a 2-page splash of the title in the book for no apparent reason.
Yeah, that's okay. Right. We have a couple of minutes because we don't have that many books left.
Yeah.
What one trope going right now in comics would you like to see end? And what one trope going right now in comics do you not mind?
What I'd like to see end is them hiring writers that aren't me.
That's not a trope, Dan, but
sure feels like it.
I was with
right,
you, Dan.
that doesn't count.
I was with you, Dan.
Right. No, we're all for everyone hire Dan, but
Yes.
like which one, Dan, would you do if you were writing a book, and which one would you not do if you know?
Well, I'm going to go with the super long titles right now, because I mean, my last 2 books were Karma and The Freeze, and not, the thing that these super long titles. Something is killing the children. We only see them when they're dead. It's only Teenage Wasteland. It's like, how do you even make a decent logo for those books? So yeah, the super long titles, they've got to go, and along with that, the Batman v Superman, or just throwing the names of the characters on it. Just give us a title, you know?
See, mine's a little trickier because it's Cthulhu. But hold on, because we have a book in here that has that, right? But it doesn't bother me when it's used in a comical way. It's books like when Zenoscope does it and some other stories I've read recently. When it's done in a comical way, it doesn't bother me that much. But
there's something else that I think it might be, and we'll get to that when I review the book. But I think I got something else for you too.
How about you, Sean?
As crazy as it's going to sound, zombies are getting a little overplayed at times.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Just let's use some other dead characters or something. But definitely, probably zombies. Even though when they're done right, they're still really good, and I think that's why people try to lean on them as much as they do. It's one of those. If you do it right, it's still great. As far as a trend that's going, I honestly don't really have one because I can't think of one right off the top of my head that would be worth keeping.
Well, good news, Sean, is they are moving away from zombies. The bad news for Jay is that they're moving into Cthulhu and the Elder Gods.
Yeah.
Right. For me, it's a twofold thing, right? It's taking well-known historical concepts like gangsters or whatever and trying to put a new spin on gangsters. Right? Like we know what a gangster is. You don't need to tell us that a gangster is not a gangster. Right? And then the other one, the other trope that I think we need to move away from is James Tinian writing everything.
I don't know. Cullen Bunn's kind of getting that way too.
Yeah. Used to be John, so.
Yeah, it's let someone else write a story and focus on making the stories you're telling good. That's one of the tropes that I want to get away from. Something I don't mind.
Higher Dan.
Something I don't mind is the other one is a cheesecake. I don't need you to put tits on the cover of a book. I don't mind them, but I don't need them.
I think Ed's got the right answer in the chat.
Post-apocalyptic.
The thing that I would love to see more of is things like we're going to talk about the Rick and Morty book later, or Scrapnik Island. Things with a lot of heart that are funny and serious, and a good balance of funny and serious. It doesn't have to be all serious. Doesn't have to be all funny. You can do the balance. It can be Scrubs.
Okay, well, if we're not talking tropes, then I'll get on my soapbox here for a second. How about let's stop trying to change a character that's been well established and create a new character that has the traits that you're trying to put into the character.
There you go.
Just saying.
Yeah. I'd like to see more mysteries.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yes.
One of my favorite runs on Batman is Hush, because there's that mystery that goes out over 12 episodes.
Yeah.
You know, or it just, I like a good mystery, and I like, clues and things. I don't need just a big, everybody's dying, everybody's killing each other. It's like, give me a story, give me something to sink my teeth into.
Yeah. I have something close to that. It's a superhero murder mystery called The Red 10 from Comics Tribe.
Hold on.
Now there is death in it, but it's definitely a book that keeps you guessing. I'm like, I would love more mystery, but I'd love to have more kind of like superhero mysteries.
Yeah,
like just mash those two genres together. Yeah,
yeah. No, I agree. I think a mystery should be at the heart of every story. Now, not necessarily a murder mystery, but there should be something that the hero's trying to figure out, whether it's who's doing something, or how do I stop this, or what's happening, and let the reader get involved and come along with the story. I think that's how you do good storytelling. Now, I've written a ton of different genres, but at the heart of most everything I've written, there is some form of mystery going on.
I feel like that's why I'm enjoying Vampirella versus Red Sonja, because there is that little air of mystery underlining what is going on.
Yeah.
All right. Before we get back to the books, can I get unanimous consent on this as a T-shirt design?
That'll work.
Yeah.
Cool.
Not that bad.
All right. Rick and Morty versus Cthulhu. I'll go first.
Yeah.
This is different, and you can tell it's different because of who's writing it. Everybody who tackles Cthulhu nowadays is trying to be the next Lovecraft and is trying to write like H.P. Lovecraft. And Lovecraft wrote very dense, very thick things. You know, I mean, I did a miniseries that was all about the fact that he did this to create barriers between worlds. It's how thick the writing is, how dense it is. Jim Zub is not doing that. Jim Zub is not trying to bring Lovecraft's writing in here. Jim Zub is a role player, is a tabletop role playing guy. It's why he does Dungeons and Dragons books, and it's why when he does Red Sonja, it feels like a Dungeons and Dragons book. This is Call of Cthulhu. This is he's bringing the game into it, not the Lovecraft writing, or the mythos. And the way it's working is, if you ever play Call of Cthulhu, the biggest thing is not to go insane. As all this craziness is happening around you, not to lose your mind, and you win by keeping as much of your sanity as possible. That's this story. That is what poor Morty is trying to do as all of this weirdness is happening to him. So, yeah, I mean, Jim Zub isn't bringing in the mythos. He's bringing in the game. And I think, A, that's what Jim Zub does great. And B, it's why it works in this situation so well.
You can ask Jay. I texted him when I got done reading this, and I said, "What did I just read?" This is my first experience with anything Rick and Morty. I've never watched the show before. This is the first of comics I've read. This was crazy, and it had some really hilarious points, especially with Morty when he was in the cell. That had me rolling. The art was all over the place, but it fits what Zub is trying to do, I think, story-wise. I think it's supposed to look all over the place because it is all over the place. And yet it still feels like he knew exactly what he was trying to do and what story he was trying to tell. This was definitely turn my brain off, just kind of have a good time, and then reset onto something serious, which is basically, I think, whatever I read after this was a little more serious. So I definitely was a nice palate cleanser for me.
Yes. Before we talked about the tropes and everything, in my notes I said, I know Jay has a problem with Cthulhu. Everybody knows he does. But like I said before, in this case, it doesn't bother me. The way that they're using it in this doesn't bother me as when they're trying to be serious with it. These Rick and Morty books, these things are weird. They're ridiculous. They're absurd. They're all the descriptive words you can think of for that. But they're just fun to me. They're just fun. And I don't even like Rick and Morty. I like what Justin Roiland does because I like Solar Opposites and the game they released, High on Life. Love those. Can't get into Rick and Morty. But the Rick and Morty comics, I'm becoming a fan of. The art looks just like the show.
Mm-hmm.
The humor works for me. Now, is this a book that I have to have? Absolutely not. But do I get a smirk on my face every time I see it's in our list? I absolutely do. So I enjoyed this. I don't know. I'm just a fan of the books.
Just picture all of these stories instead of Rick and Morty as Doc and Marty from Back to the Future, and then they really click because that's who these are supposed to originally be, were
Right.
Doc and Marty.
Definitely better than the Back to the Future comics.
Yeah, my take on it's not that bad. Still not a fan of Rick and Morty.
All right, so before everybody jumps into this, I don't know how, but I didn't see this one. So
It was late. We didn't get it until late this afternoon.
So I didn't get a chance to read it, unfortunately.
Yeah,
So with that-
IDW didn't send their thing out until 11:15 a.m. my time, LA time. So.
All right, so this is TMNT, the Armageddon game, the Alliance number 3, and this is the one of these that I've been waiting for the longest, because it's written and drawn by Junie Ba, who is a creator who I quite like. They're a little out of the box in terms of their style. You may remember Junie Ba from his book Monkey Meat, which we read and we were all like,
God, yeah.
we didn't do enough drugs for this book when we were reading it earlier. Junie Ba has a unique take on the turtles and the way he sees the turtles and the way he portrays the turtles, which I thought was interesting in this setting. I think the problem with putting it in Armageddon game is that Armageddon game is already slow enough. To slow down further by introducing a new creator to the fold, even if there's someone who I think can do big things with the turtles in the future, is ill-advised. And this book just felt like taking a book that was only barely in first gear and throwing it back into neutral and stomping on the brake a little bit. And I think it does a disservice to both Junie Ba and TMNT. But overall, this was my first taste of him working on the characters, and I'm excited to see what he can do.
Yeah, I actually just skimmed this one, but the art's not bad. It really isn't. But there's kind of this weird feeling of why didn't they just do the whole book like that? Because there's a part near the last couple of panels where the art just changes drastically. And I don't know, like I'm gonna go back and reread this, but again, I have been for the last one or two things from the Armageddon game that we've read. I'm ready for the action. I'm ready for this to begin. Like, I don't want to read any more setup books. I just want to get to the Armageddon game.
It literally seems to be the theme of this entire series is that everybody's just waiting for it to go somewhere. Also, John, you're welcome. Trust me, there's 2 volumes. You're going to enjoy Red 10 a lot.
Dan?
Yes.
What'd you think?
Sorry, I got distracted. I have an update on something else real quick. But...
Yeah, well, I'm sure it's the same thing I've got pulled up here too.
Okay. I had a hard time with the art. And I don't know the characters that well. So where I really loved the last one with Casey Jones, this one, until we got to the last part where we show them pulling characters together again, I wasn't even sure why we were watching this or reading this. So it was interesting, but again, this thing is moving so slow. It should be called the Armageddon Wait.
It's true. All right. Well, before we get to our update, I'm going to do the business, and then we'll spend the last couple minutes on the update here.
Okay.
This show, as always, is brought to you by Comic Shop Locator. Head over to comicshoplocator.com. Type in the area code where you are. and it will tell you where there are comic shops nearby to you. Give them a call, make sure that they're open, and see if there's anything you need to know before you head in. As always, visit comic shops nearby to you, pick up books. If you saw anything that you were interested in this week, make sure you swing in and pick it up. And then while you're there, pick up a copy of previews so that you can be aware of what's coming down the line, and you can pre-order stuff and really help your shop. Something that's worth noting, there's a book out tomorrow that we've bashed on here more than once, called What's the Furthest Place from Here? The issue 3 with the record is supposed to be out tomorrow. It shipped without the record. There is a delay in pressing. They're still dealing with shipping delays from the bomb cyclone that went off a couple weeks ago. So just be patient with your stores, and remember, this is the first day back from the holidays. In terms of first new week, so it's going to be a small week anyway. Use that as an opportunity to pick up some trades, pick up some back issues, pick up some stuff you might not have already read that you might have skipped for budgetary reasons before. All right, Dan, are you seeing that 32 minutes ago, Jeremy Renner posted the first photos since his injury?
Yeah, he also put the caption, "Thank you all for your kind words. I'm too messed up now to type, but I send love to you all."
Right. I would not advise going and looking at the photos if you are weak stomached. It's one photo, but it's pretty tough to look at. So maybe, if you feel like you can, then do it. It's on Instagram. If not, just know that Jeremy Renner has made a post thanking everyone for their support. And that's a good sign in my opinion. So
yeah, I mean, he's sitting in a brief description of it without getting into details. It's just him in his hospital bed. He's got his glasses on, and he's on oxygen, but he's not intubated or anything. So, and the fact that we had heard that he had chest surgery, stuff like that, this is all a really good sign from just looking at the picture. So yeah. Hopefully we'll get equally good news about DeMar Hamlin soon.
Absolutely. All right. Well, thanks everybody for tuning in. Stay tuned for Minutes Gimmick coming up next. Remember, Mint Hunter has taken the week off, so they won't be on, but Country Roads Comics will be back at 9:30 tonight. Dan will be back tomorrow with the Dan Wickline Show.
Hit that subscribe button. You're going to want it on YouTube. Hit that subscribe button. Trust me.
Yeah, hit the button, click the bell, all that kind of stuff. And we will see everybody next week on In Stores This Week.
Good night, everybody.